Hi, I'm Kat and today I have for you a true crime case, a word in Romanian, and I will also be doing my makeup at the same time. The word is bagaj. 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 Well done guys, you just said luggage. So I really want to warn you from the beginning that this is a beyond horrific case. After taking a child's life, Dahbia drank coffee and listened to music before drinking some of Lola's blood and then storing some more in a vial. Mind you, this vial was never found. Family and friends described Dahbia as a devout Christian who was increasingly drawn to evangelism. One of her ex-boyfriends said that Dahbia was obsessed with church and the cross. So what on earth happened? On 14th of October 2022, 12-year-old Lola Daviet was found dead in a travel trunk, or a suitcase if you will, in Paris, France, in Paris. Allegedly, she had been asphyxiated. The main suspect was recorded on CCTV carrying heavy luggage, which included the suitcase holding Lola, while leaving the building in the afternoon. Lola Daviet, born on 18th of July 2010 in Bethune, was a student at the college Georges Brassens in Paris, and she was the champion of France in aerobics. Lola's parents are professional caretakers of a few buildings in northern Paris, including the one where they live, the same building the suspect was seen leaving from. Oh, this is too wet. Oh, no. They also own two houses in a village near Bethune and a mobile holiday home on the English Channel coast. I know the name of the village, but I can't really pronounce it because, French. The school that Lola attended was only yards away from her home. On that Friday, Lola returned home from school, and CCTV footage from the building where she lived showed her carrying what seemed to be a school bag as she walks into the building with Dahbia at 3:20 p.m. Witnesses have also said that they saw Lola and Dahbia together. 2 hours before Lola's disappearance, one of the residents said that she saw Dahbia dragging a suitcase. She went into the building dragging it, and something was just off about her. Someone else saw her drink coffee and eating a croissant as she appeared to try and work out what to do next after leaving the building with the suitcase. The girl's father started to worry when Lola didn't return home after leaving school at 3 p.m. Now remember that she only lived yards away from school. At around 4:30 p.m., Delphine, her mother, became concerned, and so she went to the police station to report Lola missing. Delphine posted a message on Facebook at 6:45 p.m. reporting her daughter's disappearance. She posted an image of Lola with a message saying, "Our daughter Lola was last seen at 3:20 p.m. in the company of a woman we do not know in our residence." Jean Daviet, Lola's father, allegedly told police that he saw Lola with a woman in her 20s in the CCTV footage of her building. Now remember that he was a caretaker, so he had access to the CCTV, right? Later, at around 11:30 p.m., a homeless man contacted police after he stumbled across a suitcase with a body inside. It was Lola. She was found in the suitcase with her feet and wrists bound, tape around her face, several cuts to her throat, just hours after she was reported missing, a few blocks away from her home. Lola had the numbers 1 and 0 written on her. These were done by a device rather than cut into her skin, according to a police source. A post-mortem examination concluded that Lola died of asphyxiation following a physical attack, which included a knife being used to cut her body. Le Parisien quoted a press release from the Paris prosecutor's office which stated the child's autopsy revealed that she had died of cardiorespiratory failure with asphyxiation and signs of cervical compression. Multiple other lesions were noted, in particular on the face, on the back, and large cuts on the level of the neck, which did not enter, according to the conclusions of the medical examiner, in the determinism of death. The examination revealed no traumatic lesion of the entire sexual sphere. A 0 and a 1 were inscribed in red under each foot of the victim. Police told French media that they had uncovered signs of kidnapping. In the basement of the building they found duct tape and a box cutter, and so they started a criminal investigation. On Friday night, after Lola's body was discovered, 3 people were arrested near the scene. Then, a woman who was spotted on CCTV with Lola just hours before her death was also held. 2 others were also arrested, and all of them are originally from Algeria, according to Le Parisien. Of the 6 initially arrested, which included Dahbia's older sister Fria, 4 of them are now considered innocent. One 43-year-old man still faces charges over allegedly making a car available to Dahbia over the weekend. He later admitted that he brought Dahbia back to his home along with a trunk and 2 suitcases. She stayed for 2 hours before leaving in a chauffeur-driven car he had arranged for her. It's believed that Dahbia acted alone in allegedly carrying out the murder. Witnesses say that they saw her dragging the suitcase, which was stained with blood and smelled strongly of bleach. One local told the news outlet that he saw Dahbia dragging the suitcase around, quote, "We saw her go into the building. She was all alone. We saw her half an hour later with a suitcase. She was speaking a bit with everyone. She seemed to be a bit crazy. She was struggling to carry the suitcase. We thought it was because it was heavy items and she was quite slim. We never thought it was a body. It was 5 p.m. and she was walking around with that suitcase. She even left it outside the cafe and went to the bakery opposite to buy a croissant as if nothing had happened." End of quote. After leaving the building with the suitcase, Dahbia allegedly asked a witness for help in exchange for money from an organ trafficking affair. An investigating source said that Dahbia somehow earned Lola's trust and led her into a basement below the building where she attacked her. She raped Lola before killing her. According to Dahbia's initial confession, she lured Lola into her sister's apartment and ordered her to have a shower. She then forced her to perform oral stuff on her private area before placing tape on Lola's face. After she died, Dahbia stabbed her body. During her interrogation, Dahbia fluctuated between accepting and, denying responsibility, and she said that her account of committing the crime was actually her remembering a dream. At times, she blamed the murder on an unarmed stranger or even on a ghost. When she was shown pictures of Lola's dead body, she said, "That doesn't make me hot or cold. I was raped too, and I saw my parents die in front of me." She said that her motive for killing Lola was her argument with Delphine, Lola's mother. During her police interview, she said that she lacked any empathy for Lola. According to Europe 1, she told the police that she taped Lola's face, causing asphyxiation, which was eventually how Lola died. After taking her life, Dahbia said she drank coffee and she listened to music before repeatedly stabbing her corpse. She also told investigators that she drank some of Lola's blood and stored some in a vial, which hasn't been recovered. Despite a previous assault at a medical practice, France's Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin confirmed that Dahbia was not known to police. Family and friends have described her as a devout Christian who was increasingly drawn to evangelism. An ex-boyfriend said, quote, "She was obsessed with church and the cross," end of quote. 24-year-old Dahbia Benkirord, originally from Algeria, was arrested on Saturday at her sister's home. She had boasted about selling body parts. The evidence suggests that Lola was taken into the basement of the flat where she was tortured and raped before being strangled and having her throat cut. Dahbia was homeless, but she did have family and friends in Paris. Doctors told detectives that Dahbia was suffering from severe psychological problems which prompted sudden acts of violence. They said that they treated her on July 31st, 2019, but she ended up actually assaulting them. She refused to pay for the treatment and then became extremely violent, lashing out at two medical secretaries. She kept saying that she didn't ask for the treatment and so she didn't want to pay for it. One of the secretaries was covered in bruises and she actually hit back, but she then lost her job. When Dahbia was forced out of the medical practice, she shouted, "I'll be back, you don't know what I'm capable of." A judicial source confirmed that she is in custody, pending trial, charged with the murder of a child under 15, rape and torture. The public prosecutor confirmed that signs of a struggle had been discovered in one of the basement rooms in Lola's building. Born in Algeria, Dahbia came to France legally in May 2016 on a student visa. She had no prior criminal record and she was actually known to police as a victim of domestic violence in 2018. She is currently being held in isolation at Fresnes prison. She had no job or home and lived with an acquaintance in Val-de-Marne and her 26-year-old sister Faria. Her sister testified to investigators that Dahbia had been making nonsensical statements at night. Lola's mother, the caretaker of the apartment where Dahbia's sister lived, rejected Dahbia's request for a pass to enter the apartment on her own. Dahbia was actually declared mentally fit to be interviewed by police. According to the mental health report revealed by Le Parisien, the doctor affirms that Dahbia is highly dangerous and doesn't suffer from any mental disorder. She has a personality with a high psychopathic narcissistic potential, quote, that is to say, an over-esteem of herself as well as a tendency to manipulation and a perverse structuring of her personality attempting to disseminate trouble and confusion. Expertise points to a tendency to pathological lying and a lack of empathy and guilt. However, the psychiatric report assures that Dahbia does not suffer from any alteration or abolition of her discernment. Her lawyer is actually entitled to ask for a second opinion. Alexander Silva, her lawyer, denied that the murder was motivated by race. On 21st of August 2022, 2 months before the murder, Dahbia was actually detained at Orly Airport for having neither a plane ticket nor valid identity papers, and she was issued an obligation to leave the French territory the same day. Because she had no criminal record, she wasn't sent to a detention center, but instead she was given 30 days to return to Algeria. After Dahbia was identified as having ignored an order to leave France, political figures of the right and far right attacked the government of President Emmanuel Macron for the murder. In the National Assembly, Marine Le Pen of the National Rally attacked Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne, who responded by saying that the crime should be left to the police and judiciary. Eric Zemmour of Reconquête created the term francocide to describe the murder of a French person, for which he was criticized by Gérald Darmanin, the Minister of the Interior. Eric Poget of the Republicans told the Minister of Justice, Eric Dupond-Moretti, that Lola lost her life because he didn't expel this national. Emmanuel Macron met Lola's parents and he condemned the murder as an act of extreme evil, and the Minister of the Interior was also present at Lola's funeral. The government was actually accused of being too soft on immigration. Before Lola's funeral, her family issued a statement saying that people should immediately stop using the name and image of their child for political means.
This CCTV image is the last known photo of Lola alive. Taken at 3:15 p.m. last Friday, it shows an older woman leading the 12-year-old girl into a residential building where the young girl lived just hours before her death. The woman in the picture is the chief suspect in the murder, rape and torture of the child. She is a 24-year-old homeless woman with no criminal record. On Monday evening, the Paris prosecutor's office revealed more details about the girl's death as recounted by the suspect.
The woman allegedly took the victim to her sister's apartment, who lived in the same building as the child. She then forced the 12-year-old to shower before physically and sexually assaulting her and ultimately killing her.
Lola's body was found later that night in a trunk and bound in the courtyard of the building where she lived. Investigators found evidence of torture and say she died from asphyxiation. The suspect later retracted her initial account, saying it was just a dream she had had. Her lawyer is pushing for a mental health assessment.
An expert will determine whether my client is competent to stand trial for the acts she's accused of. She's innocent until proven guilty.
As pupils at the girls' secondary school paid tribute to their former classmate, people in the neighbourhood expressed their horror at the murder.
We're shaken. What happened was horrible. My children are traumatized.
Investigators believe the woman did not act alone. A 43-year-old man is accused of helping transport Lola's body. The woman is currently in police custody, while the man is under court supervision.
A police officer investigating the horrific murder spoke of the trauma discovering her body in the suitcase. Only called Adrian to protect his anonymity, he said that police paid particular attention to the call made by Lola's parents, Delphine and Jean. As the guardians of their building, they had access to security tapes from the front lobby. Adrian says, quote, "When we hear that on our radio waves, it's a shock. Our fears are crystallized. When we understand that we haven't managed to save her, that's the hardest part," end of quote. A small crew was then assembled to assess whether the person found in the box was the girl that they were looking for. He and the crew approached, listened to the description made by their colleagues who identified the body, but they didn't look themselves. They were too afraid of the shock of what they are going to find. They suspected it will be horror. Speaking about the psychological aid, Adrian added that this support is very important, and whichever policeman tells himself that, he doesn't need it, he is making a huge mistake. A serious mistake at that. Another man unwillingly caught up in Dahbia's crime was actually the taxi driver, forced to transport Lola's body and Dahbia in his cab. At around 10 p.m. on Friday, Dahbia's friend is said to have ordered a VTC taxi to collect Dahbia, her trunk and 2 cabin suitcases. Abdel, the taxi driver, remembered how Dahbia had a very casual conversation with him while riding in the back seat with Lola's body just a few feet behind her. She was asking him how the job is going for him, if he has any clients, if it's going well. He tells her everything is fine, then asks her about her job, what she does for a living. After telling him that she worked for Uber Eats, he asked whether, it was a busy job, to which she said that she would prefer to keep that detail for herself, which Abdel found really strange. Abdel was left traumatized by the incident after linking Dahbia's insistence on getting a pack of sweets to Lola, who was dead in the boot. The Parisian journalist who met the driver later appeared on BFM TV, where he explained, quote, "With hindsight, the driver is traumatized by this discrepancy between these childish and insistent requests and the presence of the corpse of little Lola just in the back in the trunk," end of quote. If we are to believe that Dahbia indeed drank from Lola's blood and kept a vial as well, then what was the motive behind this very disturbing murder? Was it witchcraft, some kind of ritual, religion, faith, belief? There are some articles out there which speak of blood drinking, apart from the obvious, the vampirism stuff. And the following is information that I took from the Grey Goose Chronicles website. In 2016, a 9-year-old boy called Hamani Yassin was discovered bleeding to death in Sidi Abed in northern Algeria. The boy had been kidnapped and assaulted for the purposes of extracting his blood. A medieval belief common to Morocco and Algeria is that there is the existence of a special kind of child known as a Zuri. the offspring of a union between a woman and jinn spirit. These children are marked by unique eyes or hair color, particular lines on the palm of their hand, tongue, or head. The belief between some North Africans is that a blood sacrifice of a Zuri child will bring them great wealth. Some reports in the press suggest that a number of children in Algeria and Morocco have disappeared and they were labeled as Zuri children. Apart from this, the practice seems to be linked to modern organ trafficking networks, a subset of the general human and contraband smuggling and trafficking between Africa and Europe. We don't know if the link is real, but organ trafficking is a common problem across the Maghreb and Middle East, with poor children sometimes killed for their organs. Interpol's overview of serious and organized crime in North Africa report from 2018 lists Algeria amongst the offending nations. In 2008, the country had to use military police to break up an organ trafficking ring run by a university professor. Social media and even some civil officials made a connection across France and the rest of Europe between Lola's murder and the Zuri children. According to some articles, the French magistrate Georges Fenet made this statement, quote, "This reminds me of the story of the Zuri children, blondes with blue eyes, considered to be the custodians of powers in Algeria. They are kidnapped, sacrificed, and their blood is drunk. On this poor girl, there was the number 1 on the sole of her left foot and the number 0. It is exactly the satanic rite of the Zuri of North Africa." End of quote. Whether we believe it or not, Lola's murder being the Zuri children's story or, organ trafficking, there are certain things in Lola's case which kind of fit with this. Witnesses reported hearing Dahbia talking about organ trafficking when she left the building. A man was arrested for allegedly transporting Lola's body in his car. If we are to say that it was the Zuri children theory, then Dahbia would have had to be well connected, who saw an opportunity to use a medieval ritual and a young body to her advantage. But her behavior and situation overall kind of, points in a different direction. She was homeless, unstable, unemployed, single. So what else could explain her behavior? Another concept is the North African magical and religious practice of tasfi. Tasfi is a virginity ceremony conducted mainly in North Africa, particularly in Tunisia and Algeria. But not a lot of data exists for how widespread the practice is. It's said that before the age of 13, a girl must be ceremonially locked to protect her purity. This is done by her mother and an older woman, making incisions into the girl's thighs and then making her eat wheat grains or raisins soaked in her own blood. The trauma of this is enough to make women suffer all kinds of sexual dysfunction throughout their lives, and the psychiatric literature is filled with case studies relating to tasfi. Women interviewed by the Independent gave some revealing testimonies. Fatima told Independent Arabia about her feelings when remembering how the taste of blood mixed with the sweetness of raisins still remains in her mouth to this day. She also said, quote, "I never believed in these superstitions, but in my first romantic relationship I had mixed feelings as I was haunted by the memories of cuts and bleedings. In successive relationships I wasn't even able to reach the euphoria during sexual intimacy." End of quote. As unrelated as this might be, some of this resonates with Lola's case. The girl, the blood tasting, thighs, sexual gratification, they all appear during Lola's attack and murder. According to the same website I mentioned, I don't know if you've heard of the francophone psychological concept of bouffe délirante. Bouffe délirante is described as an acute psychotic disorder with the following characteristics: an acute, brief, non-organic psychosis that typically presents with a sudden onset of fully formed, thematically variable delusions and hallucinations against a background of some degree of clouding of consciousness, unstable and fluctuating affect, and spontaneous recovery with some probability of relapse. The literature on bouffe délirante describes North Africans as being vulnerable to the condition particularly after they have migrated to France, where a new environment and the culture shock can provoke an acute form of psychosis. If Dahbia overstayed her visa, she was ordered to leave, but she didn't. She was homeless and unemployed and suffered a series of sexually related traumas, from tasfi to rape, and watching her parents die in front of her, then she would be likely to suffer from some form of mental breakdown. But as I always say in my videos, this is not an excuse, this is not justification. I'm just trying to, maybe make sense of something that doesn't quite make sense. If Dahbia would have been removed from France by the authorities, then Lola wouldn't have died. We don't know if Dahbia underwent TASFI as a child or if she had any psychological breakdown, but her stories, derealization and inconsistency kind of match some of the descriptions for an acute psychotic episode. With the belief in magic, witchcraft and sorcery still widespread in parts of Algeria, from what I know, this could have contributed to how Dahbia viewed Lola and her family. If the Zuri children's story was familiar to her, then she may have tried to act it out in some way, or maybe believed in its power in some way, but I think that she would have said it in her interrogation. Also, we don't know the full story, we don't know all the evidence, there is a trial pending, so I'm sure that a lot is being kept from the public. No matter what, like I said, there is no excuse there. I'm just, trying to understand from a psychological point of view. Was she jealous of Lola and their way of life? Was she trying to teach Lola's mother a lesson by attacking Lola? One thing I would say, it kind of feels to me that this was somehow planned. I mean, we know from the CCTV that Dahbia went with the suitcase in the building before she went in with Lola. So, I don't know, was it revenge? Did she lose it when Lola's mother didn't give her a pass to the apartment? Or was it as straightforward as human organ trafficking? Lola was a girl who had her whole life ahead of her. Those to blame are of course Dahbia and the French authorities for failing to remove her even when her visa had been noted as expired. But even so, who's to say that Dahbia wouldn't have done this elsewhere? And this is all I have for today, guys. Thank you so much for staying with me. Please let me know what do you think about this case. Have you heard of it? In the comment section down below. For now, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!